Well, this last talk on serving God will not be a full hour on it, but it will be a little bit longer of a homily right now, just to warn you there. When we think of serving God, we normally think of stewardship. And when I think of stewardship, I think of the 80-20 rule. That 80% of the time, the treasure, and the talent that's needed to keep things going is typically provided by 20% of the people. And I have to tell you, in 28 years, I think that's being generous. It often seems like 10% of the people provide the time, the talent, and the treasure that's needed to keep things going. So a lot of time and energy is trying to spend and engaging that other 90%. And after 2,000 years, you'd think we'd have stewardship down to a science. But serving God is not a science. Serving God is what happens when we know God and when we love God. Because then we will want to be where He is. Jesus is the one that says, "Where I am, there also will my servant be." Serving God is about being where Jesus is. And stewardship is very, very, very important to Jesus. The servant that's faithful in small matters, he says, they're going to be entrusted with more. They're going to share their master's joy. Why? Because they're going to be where he is. The unfaithful steward, in very sobering terms, will not be where he is. They'll be cast out. Well, there'll be wailing and grinding of teeth. They'll have missed out on their opportunity to be with him. So we realize the importance of forming good stewards, and as pastors, we can spend a lot of time and effort with it trying to engage people. We can bring in a dynamic speaker, throw a big meal, maybe throw away gifts, and just trying to entice them. And it could be a nice sentimental spark, but stewardship needs to be more than that. Stewardship cannot be sentimental, because where Jesus is, we're not always going to want to be. We see in Peter how strong our sentiments can be. Though all may have their faith in you shaken, mine will never be. Even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you. Sentiments come and go, no matter how strong they are. They are not an assurance that will be there. Peter wasn't there. His faith was shaken. To avoid being where Jesus was, he denied even knowing him 3 times. Jesus, though, beautifully again, doesn't punish him for it. He goes to where Peter needs to be saved, where Peter needs to be loved. He literally returns from the grave to seek him out again. 3 times he had denied even knowing him, so 3 times he is asked, "Do you love me?" We might ask why he was asked 3 times, but now that you have a little Greek, we can understand it better. The first time in the Greek, Jesus asks Peter, "Do you love me?" using agape. And Peter replies, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you," using philia. He asks him the second time, "Do you love me?" still using agape. And Peter replies again, "Lord, you know everything." Philia. Now, the exegetes have had just a heyday with this. And to me, I think it's just this simple. I mean, how could have Peter said agape when he didn't agape? I mean, Lord, you know everything. You know philia. And so what's then so beautiful is that the third time Jesus asks, do you love me? He says, philia. And then goes on to basically tell him, but you will agape me. When you were younger, you used to go where you wanted to. But when you grow older, someone else will lead you where you do not want to go. You'll stretch out your hands, and they will lead you to where you do not want to be. See, Jesus knew where Peter needed to be led to be who Peter was created to be. Where his own capacity to be filled by God would increase. And this is true for each and every one of us. God knows where you need to be led to become who you created to be, to where your capacity to be filled by God will increase. I joked with you just a little bit ago that, we're going to get a new body, and thanks be to God for that. But the soul you die with, that's yours forever. It's going to be purged, but its capacity, that's set for all eternity. Therese Lisieux was kind of scandalized by that as a little girl when she thought, gosh, there's going to be different levels of glory in heaven. And Pauline came over to help her out, and she said, now go get Mom's sewing thimble and Dad's big drinking glass and fill them both all the full with water. So she did. And she said, now which one is fuller? And Therese said, well, they're both equally full. They both took as much as they can take. And then she got it. She was able to see that in heaven, each one will be filled with as much glory as they can take. This short time on earth, that's it. That'll determine your capacity forever. Jesus knew where Agnes Concha Biagio needed to be led, to be who God created her to be, where her capacity to be filled by God would increase. Mother Teresa wasn't looking for hard things to do with her life. She just wanted to be where he was. And Jesus led her to recognize him and what she would come to recognize as Jesus in the distressing disguise of the poorest of the poor. There was a tourist who saw what she was doing and said, I wouldn't do what you do for $1 million. And she says, neither would I. But for the love of God, I do it gladly. Our Lord knew where Carol Botia needed to be led, to be who God created him to be, where his own capacity to be increased would be filled by God. It's very beautiful that we just had the election of Pope Leo, which is, gosh, that would be fun to talk about as well. But John Paul II reflected on when he was elected. This was at his 25th anniversary of being Pope. He said, at the conclave, through the College of Cardinals, Christ said to me, as he once said to Peter, tend my sheep. I heard echo in my soul the question he addressed to Peter at that moment. Do you love me? Do you love me more than these? And then he goes on to confide, and this is just so beautiful. Every day, that same dialogue between Jesus and Peter takes place in my heart. In spirit, I focus on his benevolent gaze of the risen Christ. And although he knows my frailty, he encourages me to answer confidently, like Peter, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And then he invites me to take on the responsibility that he's entrusted to me. By being alone with God in our hearts, we will hear him ask us, do you love me? And if you listen carefully, he'll ask it again and again and again. He wants to lead us to where we can be who we're meant to be. where our capacity to be filled by him will increase. When I was preparing to be ordained a transitional deacon in Rome, I was still discerning, is God calling me to be a diocesan priest or a contemplative monk? And our diocese at the time didn't have a bishop. Bishop Kinney had been moved to St. Cloud and Bishop Ziffel wasn't named yet. So when I was home over that summer, I wasn't able to talk it over with the bishop. So when I returned to go be ordained, I was still really wrestling with this. My spiritual director wasn't around either. And then God led me to go pray at the convent chapel, the Missionaries of Charity that I volunteered at. And their superior was there. And so I laid it all out with her. Was God calling me to be a contemplative monk? Was he calling me to be a diocesan priest? I have these gifts and talents to do this. I have my gifts and talents to do this. And she just kind of looked at there. I just never forget the look in her eyes. And she let me spill it all out. And at the end, she looked at me and said these very few words. She said, "Brother, do you think God needs your gifts and talents to save the world?" I guess I kind of thought he did, you know. She says he doesn't. Just give yourself to him and let him figure it out. So I did. I went on to be ordained a priest. The first thing he asked me was to come up here, actually, to Our Lady of Grace, and to teach at Bishop Ryan High School. And I'll share this with you because when he asked me, I said, "Bishop, that's the last thing I want to do is teach in high school. I don't want to go back to high school." And he said, "Father Wayne, I am not asking you. I'm telling you." So with that, and I came to love it. And after only 1 year here, I got moved to Bismarck to go to Cathedral and teach at St. Mary's Central High School. After only 2 years there, I began my first role as a pastor in Stanley. And our first day, we broke ground in a brand new church. They don't teach you about that in the seminary. And after 6 beautiful years there and 8 years of dialogue with Bishop Ziffel about living a more contemplative life, and that's a whole other story because at one stage he's like, "This will never happen in our diocese, especially with you, because we need you in a parish." He gave me permission to live that way for 1 year. And after 3 years, we decided I should do that for the rest of my life, so I made a final profession. And then 6 years total as a hermit. My health had its first roadblock and first back surgeries, and I couldn't live it out anymore. So I went down and tried to heal up in the winter months with a priest friend of mine in Florida. Came back and Bishop Ziffel was gone and Bishop Kagan was here. So I lived in residence at St. Anne's for a year with a full understanding that I would go back to being a hermit. And I obviously didn't. Father Ed Wayner retired and I was asked to stay on, which I did for the next 10 years. And then at the closing of those years, Bishop Kagan and I started talking about doing something a little bit more contemplative. And that's where I'm at now. So it ends up this nun was right. Ends up he wanted me a diocesan priest and a monk. I just have to let him figure it out. And I can look back and see very clearly that it's not about the actual work that I do, serving God. It's about allowing him to lead me where he knows I need to go, to become more fully who he wants me to be. Where my own capacity to be filled by God will increase. You might imagine how much of a whiplash it was to go from living as a hermit to the third largest parish in our diocese at the time, with a lot of things that needed to be worked out. After a month there, I said, I need to go take a few days. I need to go up to the Hermitage and just pray. And I had 3 days marked off, and first day was just like, oh, thank you, Jesus. This is so good to be back up here. And after that day, it's like, okay, now you need to go back to the parish. I'm like, I got 3 days up here. Just sticking them out. He goes, no, there's a lot of stuff that you got to get back there. And I'm like, no. And he goes, well, okay, I'm going back. In a very short time, I learned how much grace he gave me to live as a hermit for 6 years. because without him there, it was horrible. It was not the chelum. It became just a cella, a cell. And so I went back. And I need to be where he is. That's all that it's about. There's a story of Peter that was fleeing Rome, and they were looking to crucify him. And he was like, I'm getting out of town. And on the road, he meets the risen Lord who's going back into Rome. And in the Latin, he asks him the very memorable, Quo vadis, where are you going? And Jesus says, I'm going to Rome to be crucified again. And so then Peter turns back around to be where the Lord is, where he's crucified upside down, the kind of death by which he would glorify God and how he would come to know him as the man he is, St. Peter. There's a saying that God constantly smashes the molds that we place ourselves into because they're always limiting. And I look at that in my own life, So now I'm a high school teacher, I'm kind of liking it. So that come along, got smashed. And then now I'm a pastor of a new parish, and things are just happening beautifully, and that got smashed. And now I'm a hermit, okay, now this is where I'm supposed to be for the rest of my life. That comes and gets smashed. Now I'm in a larger parish, and this is really a beautiful community. I could see myself spending a lot of time here. God comes along and gets smashed. I know I'm going to get smashed again. This isn't like it. He knows where I need to be. And we need to have that kind of trust in him. Trusting that he has you exactly where you're meant to be. That he has nothing in vain. I'd like to close with this. Again, it's all in this book too. The prayer is in there. It was really quite interesting because I knew this prayer in its abbreviated version, and I had to go through the whole editing process, and the editor was just being a stickler on this prayer. They're like, cite it. And I go, well, it's an abridged version, I guess. I can't find a citation for it, and they can't use it. And okay. And I found the more fuller version of it, and I'm so glad they pushed me on that one. Because its fuller version really resonates with my heart. Just close your eyes and listen to this for a second. This is what St. John Henry Newman wrote. We are all created to his glory. We are created to do his will. I am created to do something or to be something for which no one else is created. I have my place in God's counsels, in God's world, which no one else has. Whether I be rich or poor, despised or esteemed by man, God knows me and calls me by my name. God has created me to do him some definitive service. He's committed some work to me that he's not committed to another. I have my mission. I may never know it in this life, but I shall be told it in the next. Somehow I'm necessary for his purposes, as necessary in my place as an archangel in his. If I fail, he can raise another, as he would make the stones children of Abraham. Yet I have a part in this great work. I'm a link in a chain, a bond of connection between persons. He has not created me for naught. I shall do good. I shall do his work. I shall be an angel of peace, a preacher of truth in my own place, while not intending it if I but keep his commandments and serve him in my calling. Therefore, I'll trust him. Whatever I am, I can never be thrown away. If I'm in sickness, my sickness may serve him. In perplexity, my perplexity may serve him. If I'm in sorrow, my sorrow may serve him. My sickness or perplexity or sorrow may be necessary causes of some great end which is quite beyond us. He does nothing in vain. He may prolong my life, he may shorten it. He knows what he's about. He may take away my friends, he may throw me among strangers, he may make me feel desolate, make my spirits sink, hide my future from me. Still, he knows what he is about. That's serving God. May we be true servants of the Lord. I love the line in there, my sickness or perplexity or sorrow may be necessary causes of some great end which is quite beyond us. You just never know what God's doing. We don't know what he's doing with our sicknesses, with our illnesses, with our losses, with our suffering. We had no idea what he was doing with Job. But boy, was he doing something there. It is for us simply to strive to know him and to love him and to serve him. And as St. Augustine would say, if you understand him, then he's not God. It's always a mystery. And in one of my favorite books, Interior Freedom, Father Jacques Philippe says sometimes you just got to give up decoding the mystery. That trying to figure it out is going to just cause you more hurt than good. That the only path is a humble and peaceful surrender. Trusting, basically, that he knows what he is about. So let us leave today in a few moments renewed by the risen Lord in our souls, with our focus on him, the God that we know, the God that we love, the God that we serve, the God who is our peace.